Next on KPBS Evening Edition, preparing for the worst. The disaster plan in place for destructive wildfires in San Diego County. Plus, a shouting match breaks out over the future of the San Onofre power plant, the vote that pushed the public over the edge. And the Vista School District superintendent steps down amid claims of questionable financial spending. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Friday, October 18th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Priya Sridhar. We're entering the most dangerous time of the year in Southern California for wildfires. Today, San Diego County unveiled its new personal disaster plan to help residents protect themselves, especially those in the most severe risk areas. Next week marks the anniversaries of the 2007 Witch Creek Fire and the 2003 Cedar Fire. Both wildfires were catastrophic, each burning more than 200,000 acres, destroying many homes and killing more than a dozen.
It's with that backdrop that we are urging every resident in San Diego County to prepare themselves and their household for what could be another devastating fire season.
Today, the county released its new personal disaster plan that will be mailed to 200,000 residents and 5,000 businesses in the most fire-prone areas. It's also available online at readysandiego.org. According to the county, only 40% of residents say they have a personal disaster plan, and it's the first time since 2006 that the county plan has been updated.
Preparing for any disaster includes creating a disaster plan. The plan will help address all the individual steps to take before, during, and after a wildfire. Specific to wildfires, it's also crucial to prepare your structure and landscape for 3 reasons. The first, if you're trapped at your home, you have the best chance of survival. The second, if you have to evacuate, you know that you've done everything you can to save your home ahead of the fire. And 3, creating defensible space and hardening your home will give firefighters the best chance in saving your home safely.
Officials say some of the best ways to stay safe and prevent wildfires is to maintain your vehicles and exercise extreme caution when working outdoors, especially by avoiding using tools that can spark a fire. County officials say the new manual will also define different phrases and terminology officials might use during an emergency situation.
Do you know the difference between an evacuation warning and an evacuation order? First responders will do their best to give a warning, to say it's time now to prepare to evacuate, before they issue an order, which is get out of harm's way now, leave your home now. Do people know the differences in those?
And risks for wildfires are picking up as Santa Ana winds move in. Meteorologist Marvin Gomez explains.
I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. Thank you for staying with us here on KPBS News. We have a wind advisory in effect. Sundowner winds are going to be happening over across Santa Barbara and even into north of LA, into Pasadena. We are going to see this advisory until 2 o'clock tomorrow in the afternoon. Definitely, these winds are going to increase the potential for some fire conditions out there. Take a look at some of those gusts. Will be between 40 and 50 miles per hour all the way along Santa Barbara Mountains into north of LA. For us here at home tonight, 59 degrees with partly cloudy conditions. I'll have more of your local forecast in just a couple minutes.
Tempers flared during a California Coastal Commission meeting in Chula Vista. At issue, a unanimous vote on a plan to remove the twin reactor domes at the San Onofre nuclear power plant. At one point, a shouting match broke out between audience members and the commission over the unanimous ruling.
You, sir, are out of order. I am not calling a roll. I don't need a vote. I got a unanimous vote. So you can either sit down and be quiet or leave.
Some call the decommissioning plan rushed and reckless. Supporters, though, say the time has come to remove the facilities not being used for the safety of those who live there and the environment. Activists are now concerned over where and how the 3.6 million pounds of nuclear waste will be moved. The demolition project would take up to a decade to complete. The Vista School District superintendent resigns amid staff protests accusing the school board of wasteful spending. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong spoke with the board president about the district's finances.
About an hour before last night's school board meeting, dozens of Vista Unified employees rallied outside the boardroom. They were protesting the leadership's financial decisions in a year when the district needs to cut more than $19 million from its budget.
Bottom line reason staff are protesting today is because our school board is being fiscally irresponsible with the funding that the taxpayers and the school district and our budget don't have.
The staff specifically criticized the addition of an 8th period at Vista High and Rancho Buena Vista High. That's expected to cost the district almost $6 million in staffing and facilities. The district superintendent, Linda Kimball, also formally resigned yesterday. She was placed on administrative leave last month. While Fowl says she was forced out for criticizing the board's spending, board president Rosemary Smithfield said Kimball and the board came to a settlement agreement for her resignation, which included a buyout for $280,000.
We're losing students. We have lots of money to cut. And taking the student part and the academic part very seriously, we had wanted to go in one direction. And we found that we weren't on the same page.
Assistant Superintendent of Innovation Matt Doyle, who had been serving as interim superintendent, was appointed to the permanent position last night. In the coming year, board president Smithfield said she anticipates difficult cuts to staffing and programs. The school board scheduled a public meeting on November 4th to discuss the budget cuts. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
It was quite a ride and for a good cause. We're talking about the $1 Million Challenge, a 7-day, 625-mile bike ride to raise over $1 million for the Challenged Athletes Foundation. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and over 100 cyclists of all abilities took part in the journey from Palo Alto in the Bay Area to La Jolla Shores today. The event helps support people with physical challenges, including veterans and children. Another contentious week between Capitol Hill Democrats and the White House comes to a close. From the impeachment inquiry to Syria, tensions remain high, and members of Congress on both sides of the aisle are wondering where it all goes next. Karen Kaifa reports from Washington.
A whirlwind week of clashes between the two ends of Pennsylvania Avenue over the impeachment inquiry and the Trump administration's moves regarding Syria.
We've had tremendous success, I think, over the last couple of days.
Questioned even by some Republicans.
Are we so weak and so inept diplomatically that Turkey forced the hand of the United States of America?
On Friday, the White House in damage control mode after Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney admitted Thursday that President Trump did hold back military aid to Ukraine to press the country into opening an investigation into Democrats.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
Mulvaney later denied that's what he'd said, but the admission troubled members of both parties.
You're not supposed to use your position as an elected official to undermine, to ask a foreign entity to investigate a political rival.
It's certainly very, very serious and troubling.
Mulvaney's comments came as U.S. Ambassador to the European Union Gordon Sondland testified to lawmakers he was directed by the president to work with his personal attorney on Ukraine.
There is absolutely no justification for the president's personal lawyer having an influence on American foreign policy.
More witnesses in the impeachment inquiry are expected next week, with Democrats moving forward while mourning a key leader, House Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings, who passed away Thursday. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
California's unemployment rate fell to a new record low of 4% in September. Employers added 21,300 non-farm payroll jobs. That extended California's record job expansion to 115 months. The Golden State has gained nearly 3.4 million jobs since that expansion began back in February of 2010. A major business story that will affect the U.S. economy will unfold this weekend. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has an update on Brexit and some of the week's other headlines in the Friday Business Report.
I'm here with marketing strategist from San Diego State University, Amir Al-Kapik. He's also the co-founder of Bottom Line Marketing. Thanks very much for being here. Let's talk a little bit about Brexit. There's a possibility of a deal that's big for England, but what does it mean for us on this side of the pond?
Well, for us, it could mean if the deal passes that the UK can actually trade directly do a trade agreement with the United States, which is great for the UK and potentially for the United States. But more importantly, in the case of Brexit, it's a very challenging situation. They did strike an agreement. It goes to Parliament on Saturday. It's essentially the exact same agreement that Parliament has defeated 3 times already. There's one little provision about Northern Ireland that allows the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland to be part of the EU. If the vote is yes, what happens? First and foremost, the UK comes out of the EU. Secondly, it's going to be high degrees of disruption for British business and American companies that do business with British companies. If they vote no, it continues the turmoil of British politics. There will be an election for a new prime minister. The issue is they're going to need an extension to the Brexit agreement, and the EU may decide not to, which means they crash out on the 31st, and the disruption and chaos with an election and the economic disruption will be very difficult. Any new prime minister has some tough choices to make.
Fun to watch on that side of the pond, but we have turmoil on this side as well. Long strike with General Motors maybe coming to an end. What's going on there?
You know, that's way more positive news. In fact, it's way positive news for the middle class. You know, wage increases have been kind of muted, although they have been for the first time in a couple of years. But this contract that the UAW struck with General Motors is a big win for their workers. 50,000 workers went on strike for 31 days. It was the longest strike in 20 years, and it's the largest strike in terms of number of workers since the 2007 GM strike, but that only lasted 3 days. GM workers really took large pay cuts during the bankruptcy of General Motors in 2009. They made a lot of concessions, and so this is their opportunity to get some of that back. The one concession the UAW gave to GM is going to close 3 plants overall. But the impact for both workers and GM in this 30 days has been very difficult.
I was just going to say, this has also had an impact on the nation's manufacturing economy, right? There was a noticeable downtick while the strike was going on.
Yes, this month manufacturing output declined 0.5 point. It has declined 0.9 point in the last 12 months. So all the decline has been in the last 30 days. Almost all of it is due to General Motors.
Finally, GM makes cars, and running those cars has become more expensive, right? Price of gas really up there. Is it coming back down? You know,
the price of gas kind of has gone up almost 60 cents in the last 2.5, 3 weeks. It peaked last week. It came down 5 cents this past week. Experts say they'll be down till about $4 a gallon by Halloween. The question is, will they go down further? And one of the big overhanging factors is consumer groups and regulatory groups say that the refiners charge higher prices than they should. The California Energy Commission has a report coming out at the end of the year that they previewed that said generally branded gas stations charge much more higher per gallon than non-branded gas stations. And so consumers just need to be thoughtful where they buy their gas.
Mira Kopic, San Diego State University and Bottom Line Marketing. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Eric.
Crises at home and abroad rattled the Trump presidency. Congressman Duncan Hunter and rivals failed to get the Republican Party endorsement. And is California prepared for the next big one? Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30.
Some employees at Sharp Chula Vista and some police officers dyed their hair pink today as part of National Mammography Day. The goal of the day is to remind women that mammograms can often detect medical problems before there are physical symptoms or signs, and that early detection is the best defense against breast cancer. It's the most common cancer diagnosed in women. National Mammography Day is also part of the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so see your doctor. And being diagnosed with breast cancer is news no one ever wants to hear. But every year, about 245,000 women are given that diagnosis. For them, it's just the beginning of a long journey. In today's Health Minute, Reed Binion finds out what comes next for those patients.
The moment a patient finds out they have breast cancer can be overwhelming.
They have
just so many questions about what's the right path forward.
Especially with so many decisions and specialists involved.
The first physician that they typically meet with would be the breast surgeon, who's going to be talking with them about how do we take this cancer out, how do we, approach the overall treatment.
According to oncologist Amelia Zelnak, the type of breast cancer the patient has, not just the stage, will determine their treatment.
When a patient finds out they have breast cancer initially, they may not even have that information back yet. And then as it comes in, they get a clearer picture of what their treatment plan is going to look like.
Zelnak says advancements in the last 2 decades have made it possible for highly individualized treatment plans, greatly improving patient outcomes.
As patients gain more information about the prognosis, many of them are then reassured about, oh, well, this is going to be a tough road, but then at the end of it, I've got a really outstanding prognosis.
For today's Health Minute, I'm Reed Binion.
And here's some food for thought when it comes to exercising. You might want to do it on an empty stomach and in the morning. Researchers in the UK found men who exercised on an empty stomach burned more fat than those who ate breakfast first. The reason is because without any fuel from food, your body has to use stored carbohydrates for energy, forcing your body to then use fat. Less noise and less pollution. That's the idea behind a new ordinance in Coronado that bans the use of gas leaf blowers. If fully approved, it would go into effect in January. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains.
There's no denying it. Leaf blowers are noisy.
In Coronado, we live really close together, so you always hear leaf blowers at all. I can hear one right now.
City Councilman Whitney Benzian proposed the gas-powered blower ban.
We live in, like I said, in a small town, and it can get kind of noisy here. We've got helicopters, we've got airplanes, we've got a lot of cars. Those are our big issues. This is one of the small things that we can do to mitigate that sound.
An alternative to gas-powered leaf blowers are electric ones, which are much quieter. The city of Coronado itself has gotten rid of gas blowers and swapped them for battery-powered ones. And others seem to be following suit.
Some landscapers have already made the switch to these electric blowers. Now, enforcement of this ordinance will be based off of complaints, meaning if somebody sees someone using a gas leaf blower, they can call the police, who can come out and give them a warning or a $100 fine.
If our police officers have enough time to respond to these calls about potential illegal gas-powered leaf blowers operating in our community, I'd much prefer them spending their time somewhere else.
Coronado Mayor Richard Bailey says this is getting blown out of proportion.
In my opinion, I think we have much bigger priorities that we should be spending our time on.
He's unclear exactly what problem this is solving.
If the objective is to improve air quality, well then why stop at gas-powered leaf blowers? Why not move to gas-powered lawnmowers or gas-powered weed whips?
Landscaper Thorson Peters is the owner of Thorson's Lawn Care and uses a gas blower.
It's more accessible, it's easier to use for prolonged being away from electrical outlets.
He says switching to electric just isn't worth it for him.
For me to run electric, I would have to have a generator. And, I'm out on the road all day, so there's no way for me to recharge my tools.
The gas-powered ban will come back before the council for final approval soon. Backers say the community supports the idea.
Some for environmental reasons, some just, like I said, because it's a noise pollution. So it's really a quality of life issue in general for our community.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
It might be fall, but get ready for it to feel like summer again. Heat's on the way. Meteorologist Marvin Gomez has our weekend forecast.
Hope you're having a great Friday so far. Thank you for staying with us here on KPBS News. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. Breezy conditions will continue over the mountains, and as we go through the weekend, a stronger offshore flow will be the pattern for the most part, and for early next week, we're definitely going to see a warming trend in temperatures. In the last couple of hours, we've seen quiet weather in place across much of San Diego and for the most part here throughout California. Tonight, temperatures are going to be in the upper 40s across Escondido. As we take a look across Borrego Springs, 57 for you. Chula Vista coming down to 56. We do have some wind advisory, specifically north of LA, Pasadena, and even into Santa Barbara and the mountains out there. We are going to see some of those wind gusts between 40 and 60 miles per hour. Mainly sunny skies, clear weather in place across much of Southern California, and the direction of the winds will be changing from a northerly direction to an easterly one, creating more of a weaker Santa Ana wind effect. For tomorrow afternoon here in San Diego County, lots of sunshine, very few clouds throughout our region. Mount Laguna reaching 66, 89 across Borrego Springs. As we take a look at your extended forecast along the coast, 77 for our Saturday. By the time we reach Sunday, temperatures will be in at the 80-degree mark and mid-80s heading into our Monday. Inland, we could be reaching the mid-90s by the time we head into our Tuesday. So here we're definitely going to see a noticeable warming trend as we go through the weekend and into early next week. The mountains 65 on Sunday, 70 degrees heading into our Monday, and across the deserts 88 for Sunday, 91 on Monday, possibly 94 degrees heading into our Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. Back to you.
Are you ready to watch some history? It involves the first ever all-female spacewalk, which included Jessica Meir, who graduated from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. Take a look at this.
History in the making unfolded high above the Earth's atmosphere as two women embarked on the first all-female spacewalk. The astronauts Christina Cook and Jessica Meir ventured outside the International Space Station to replace faulty equipment. The pair tweeted images of themselves gearing up before the mission. Cook was already in the midst of making history. Once complete, her time on the station will be the longest single spaceflight by a woman. What's more, the ground communicator during the walk was also a woman. The accomplishments are significant steps for the space program and giant leaps for women everywhere.
And that was Jeremy Roth reporting. San Diego Opera launches its 2019-2020 season with a well-proven grand opera from Verdi. But KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says that this production of Aida tries something different.
When David Bennett took over San Diego Opera in 2015, he introduced a program called Detour, which was meant to showcase everything that was not grand opera.
If you think of the word of a detour is, along the same direction, but maybe a different path, right? Getting you to the same place, but a different path.
This program has led audiences to innovative productions of chamber operas, contemporary operas, and operas from other cultures. But now, perhaps, grand opera is ready for a detour as well.
That's actually a very good metaphor, right? We actually have thought about that, and we've talked about it. We said, why don't we think about applying some of the learning that we've taken from Detour and see if we can put a little bit of that on main stage.
To kick off the new opera season, Bennett is doing precisely that with a scaled-back version of the Verdi favorite, Aida. Earlier this week, set pieces from a more traditional Aida were being repurposed by technical director Tim Wallace for the current and very different-looking production now.
We're ever evolving and adapting into who we are, and something fresh and something new that our audience hasn't seen. This is definitely like the jumping-off point for that on the main stage.
As general director for San Diego Opera, Bennett has to not only decide on programming choices, but also keep an eye on the budget. When programming this new season, he was looking for cost-efficient ways to stage an epic opera like Aida, which the company had produced in 2013 in opulent splendor. But the necessity of financial concerns can be turned into creative solutions driven by an artistic vision.
Just in the way that it's played, the orchestra is going to be on stage and the singers are all downstage on the thrust, as opposed to being in the middle of the stage. If anybody's ever been to see the symphony live, that's a spectacle. We're putting it all together, but all in full view.
That means fewer expensive and massive set pieces and no live animals, says tenor Carl Tanner.
I did the world's largest production of Aida with elephants and snakes and camels, etc. And I've done scaled-down versions of Aida. It's all about the music.
I think it draws attention to the beautiful writing of Verdi across the board. So Verdi actually made a comment right before he composed Aida of a new idea about composing operas that's with sort of intention across all musical spectrum, of actually honoring the orchestra in the same way as he honors singers. And I think we're doing that with this production.
Audiences will clearly see the musicians, the chorus, and the singers all on stage. At times, Tanner will be a mere few feet away from the front row.
For the people right down front, they're going to feel a little overwhelmed with the sound, maybe from the artist, maybe from the soloist. But I feed off the audience energy. When they're excited, I'm excited.
And that excitement helps when you have to sing an aria almost as soon as you enter the stage.
It's one of the hardest tenor arias written. I would love to ask Verdi, how about just 10 minutes later? What were you thinking? You know, maybe 10 minutes later in the act. That's what makes it challenging, is because you don't know how much you should warm up, how much you should not warm up, and then you get out on stage and you have to pace yourself. It's a pacing thing with this whole opera and the tenor.
It may not be the epic production people are used to, but for a technical director, there are still a lot of moving parts.
There are moving parts to this. Drops fly in and out. Some scenery comes flying in. Some scenery moves across the stage. It's not just a concert version of anything. It's still very much a theatrical experience.
But an experience that may allow audiences to hear Verdi in a new and more intimate way, without any elephants to distract them. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And that's going to do it on this Friday. As always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. And we want to leave you with a Halloween garden in Del Mar. Thanks for joining us and have a great evening.